Yeah, I'll try and look at this camera, but it's really tempting. I like to look at the wall here to see everybody on Zoom, but that means you can't see me as well. So try and remember just to look at the camera. And yeah, this evening I'm going to be talking about karma and why karma is important. So through this series at Sanganite, we're treading the Noble Eightfold Path. Kind of metaphorically, each week during the talks, we're exploring the different limbs of the path. And we're journeying along the path, but also in real life as a spiritual community, we're striving for awakening, putting this path into practice in our daily lives. So these talks, this series at Sanganite is pointing to the very heart of Buddhist practice, what it means to live a Buddhist life. Now, what I meant to do, and I've forgotten, I was a bit nervous tonight for some reason, but I've forgotten to put up the flipboard. So you have to imagine there's a flip chart that has the Noble Eightfold Path there. And and there's a path of vision and a path of transformation. But you've all seen it so many times. It's like such a joke. It might appear as I'm speaking. So yeah, you will all know anyway. There's a path of vision and a path of transformation. So the Eightfold Path, the Dharma life, begins with a vision of a glimpse of what life is really about, the nature of reality, and that brings meaning and purpose to our lives. And but then, if we don't, we've also seen we have to act on that. We have to transform our lives. We have a path of transformation where we need to act on that vision and let it transform all the different aspects of our lives. And it sounds like the Noble Eightfold Path might be about to enter the Great Hall and take out the camera. Let's see what happens. Here it comes. Here comes the Eightfold Path. I think it'd be good to have the Eightfold Path. So I'm going to talk about right action, perfect action this evening on the Eightfold Path. So it's all about karma and ethics. Thank you very much, my beautiful assistants. Here is the Noble Eightfold Path.
Can everyone see that? Oh, not really.
Yeah, well, yeah. It was worth the effort. Thank you very much. So here we have the Eightfold Path, and the fourth limb of the Eightfold Path is action. So action is the natural next step after transforming our emotion. Our vision transforms our emotion, then our speech. And action is the kind of concrete way that our vision will be expressed, manifested in the world around us. So it's really extremely important that we transform our action, make it and bring it in line with our vision. So as a practicing Buddhist and ordained Buddhist, I've undertaken to practice ethical precepts to bring my actions gradually more and more in line with the vision, my vision of what life is for. So yeah, how we act is extremely important. It affects me as the doer of the actions through the law of karma, but it affects those around me in the world as well. So I want to explore this evening. Well, what is karma? Briefly, what is karma and why is it important? And maybe just compare traditional teachings around karma with more contemporary approaches to karma, and just compare those. So answering the question, what is karma, is pretty straightforward. Karma just literally translates as action. It means action, the word karma. And there's two associated terms that, again, I meant to write up earlier and completely forgot to. And one is karma chaitana, C-E-T-A-N-A. Chaitana means a volitional action. So karma chaitana is a decision or action we take, a volitional action. And then karma vipaka, V-I-P-A-K-A, that's the fruit or the ripening of that action. That's the kind of the consequence, the ethical consequence of the action we've taken. So you've got these two terms, chaitana and vipaka. And then we've got the law of karma. And the law of karma is the mechanics, it's the process by which this dynamic plays out, that our ethical choices ripen into consequences. That's governed by the law of karma. So you probably know all of this already. And probably for me, the kind of purest expression of the mechanics and the process of the law of karma is found in an early text called the Dhammapada, some collection of the Buddha's sayings of the Buddha. And Sangharakshita, our teacher, has said, well, the Dhammapada, the words of the Dhammapada are literal truth, and we should engrave those words on our hearts in letters of gold and letters of fire. So I'm going to, the very first two verses of those verses just in a way capture pretty much the whole of Buddhism, but especially the law of karma. So the first two verses are: experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If we speak or act with an impure mind, suffering follows, even as the wheel of the cart follows the hoof of the ox. And the second verse is, experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. If we speak or act with a pure mind, happiness follows, like a shadow that never departs. So initially I want to focus on the second part of those verses. If we speak or act with an impure mind, an unskillful mind, suffering follows. If we speak or act with a pure mind, happiness follows. And it sounds very straightforward, doesn't it? It sounds very simple. And this is the law of karma in a nutshell, but it often gets misunderstood and misapplied. So I want to just explore initially ways that the law of karma gets misunderstood and misapplied, and how we can approach ethics in a harmful way, or kind of maybe a damaging way. So for me, I think at times I use that in the present sense. I was going to say I have used the precepts in a particular way. I think I still do from time to time. I use the precepts as a list of how to be a good boy, basically, because I was raised in my family and at school to be a good boy, to please the authority, which was my mum or the teacher. And if I was a good boy, I would get praise and I'd be happy. And if I was a bad boy, I'd be punished in some way and told off. And so if I'm not careful, like that's quite a deeply rooted conditioning, which just bring naturally to ethical behaviour. There's a list of how to behave. I want to be a good boy, so I'll be kind. I'll try and tell the truth. That isn't what the law of karma is about, and it's not what Buddhist ethics is about. But also, it's reinforced. We live in a society influenced deeply by Christianity, and I was raised as a Christian, and that Christianity would also teach that there's a reward if you're a good boy or girl, you go to heaven, and if you're a bad boy or girl, you'll go to eternal damnation. You'll be in hell for eternity. So it's not surprising we might unconsciously bring those kind of attitudes, approaches to Buddhist ethics, but I just want to be really clear, that isn't what ethics is about in Buddhism. And then another popular misconception about karma relates to this, is that karma is some kind of punishment or a destiny. The Hindu take on karma, as I understand it, is that karma is used to explain why we've been born into the particular circumstances that we've been born into. So India has, for a very long time, traditionally been divided into castes, different kind of groups of people, of families, some of which are seen as noble and have wealth and opportunity, and some of which are seen as being very, very ignoble and, to the extent they can't be touched by other people or seen by other people. And they live in complete poverty and oppression. And that still plays out in modern India. I've got friends who've lived that kind of life, and Indian Buddhists who've lived that kind of life. But it's really important to clarify. So the karma in that context is the reason why you've been born into those circumstances. It's your karma from a previous life. So it's used as a way of explaining why you've been born into a life of oppression and misery. And the implication is, well, don't complain about it and don't try and change your circumstances. This is your karma. This is something that's happening to you. It's a punishment. And it's really important to clarify that the Buddha completely rejected caste. And he had a really striking conversation with a Brahmin from a Hindu Brahmin caste soon after he was enlightened, where he was just really clearly said, well, you don't become noble by birth, by being born into a particular family. You become noble through your actions, through your ethical actions. That's how you become noble. So the law of karma can be wrongly applied as a form of destiny, or that you can't change, or even as a form of punishment to explain why bad things happen to people. And this view has crept into Buddhism, unfortunately, and karma being seen as a punishment and an explanation for physical suffering. So we even had fairly recently, in my kind of memory, Buddhist monks trying to explain the cause of natural disasters like the tsunami that took place a decade or so ago, as the cause of that was a collective karma of the population of that place. That's why they had experienced that suffering. But it's really like just a misapplication of karma. It's not how the law of karma works in Buddhism. And again, the Buddha stated really clearly when he was alive that people who try to explain everything by karma are wrong. You can't explain everything through karma. And he also talked about how there are different forms of conditionality. So the Buddha's key teaching was everything arises independent of conditions. But karma is just one of the ways in which those conditions play out. There's different other influences on conditions. So again, what I've meant to do is write up a list of a really, really, really important Buddhist list called the 5 Niyamas. So some of you may have encountered this list before, and it might be new to others, but it's a really important list. And it's basically, Buddhist scholars went on after the time of the Buddha to group together the different types of conditionality. And so if you imagine there's a list of five words, and the first 3 types of conditionality basically relate to what we regard as science, the sciences. So Buddhist scholars, centuries ago, recognized, well, actually, what Sangharakshita called inorganic laws, so the laws of physics, thermodynamics, gravity, they very clearly affect reality and conditions. Then you've got inorganic laws, laws of biology, so the organic laws of biology and organisms. And I don't know a lot about science, but I believe I believe in that. It seems to work. And then there's also social sciences. There's the laws that govern how beings interact with each other, animal instincts, psychology, human-animal behavior. So there's all these different ways of that, in a way, that can condition our experiences. And karma is another form of conditionality, but it's only one of many different types of conditions playing out at any one time. And there's a 5th type of conditionality called dharma conditionality. I'll intend to come back to that later. So one key implication from this teaching and this list is that karma is just one form of conditionality, one type of conditionality. So it's very, in a way, dangerous conditionality is really complex and nuanced. It's really dangerous to try and attempt to explain your present experience or the experience of others in terms of karma. It's just one strand of conditionality. But then there's a second important implication as well from this teaching, which is that, well, the law of karma is a law. It's a law built into the nature of reality, like the law of gravity or other laws that we take very, very seriously. So in a way, we need to take the law of karma just as seriously as we would take the law of gravity. Like, I wouldn't step off a very high building because there will be consequences and I don't want those consequences. And in the same way, we need to take the consequences of our ethical action just as seriously. It's a law built into the fabric of reality. So the Eightfold Path, the path of vision, the path of transformation, well, in a way, underpinning all of the path of transformation is this principle of karma. The Dharma uses the law of karma to transform how we act, speak, and behave, all the different aspects of our life, so that we can grow, we can transform and grow in emotional positivity and in wisdom. So there's a couple of approaches to karma which are wrong turns. There's trying to be a nice boy or girl, or looking in terms of punishment or fate. And there's maybe a healthier approach to karma, which often we'd approach in the West, which is kind of closer to the right track, but still not completely there. But we can practice ethics and use the law of karma to create a better version of ourselves. We can cooperate with the law of karma to transform ourselves and to create a better future for ourselves. So it's much more, the best way to use karma isn't to look back to try and explain things that have happened, but to look forward to the future and to decide on the kind of person we want to become, and to change our actions now to create that kind of future for ourselves, to transform our personality to become a different person using the law of karma. So moment by moment, every moment, we've got the opportunity to make ethical choices that transform our future personality. So the time of the Buddha lived in a particular time in ancient India with a culture, a population had a very strong belief in rebirth. So this is a very, if you look at traditional teachings around Buddhism, it also includes teachings around rebirth. So part of the traditional take on karma, it was concerned with practicing ethics to have a better future. in the same way that we would want. But from a traditional Buddhist point of view, that would involve being reborn into a better state, a better circumstances, a better world. And it's easy for us to dismiss the idea of rebirth because we've got no evidence, we've no scientific evidence to be able to verify rebirth. But it's also important to say we've got no evidence to disprove rebirth either. We kind of can't prove or disprove it. And I think basically the best approach is to keep an open mind. We don't know what's going to happen when we die. We don't know about the teaching of rebirth. But what we do know is that the Buddha and every enlightened teacher since the Buddha has taught rebirth. And I think, we can place weight on that. At the same time, I don't know what's going to happen when you or I die. But in a kind of contemporary approach to karma, our worldview is dominated by scientific materialism, by psychology. So in a contemporary world, we'd approach karma in terms of psychology. We can work with the law of karma in a similar way to traditional Buddhists to create a better future for ourselves. And we can experience the ripening, the vipaka of that karma in this very lifetime. We don't need to believe in rebirth to see the law of karma working and transforming us. We can see it ripening I've seen it ripen in my own lifetime. I've seen it ripening in everybody's lifetime on the screen and in the hall. I know the law of karma works. Yeah, so we can practice ethics, we can use the law of karma to transform our personality and to transform our inner world and to become happier and less stressed. And that's worked for me, it's worked for lots of my friends. And there's nothing wrong with approaching the law of karma and Buddhism in that way. It will make you happier, less stressed, more at ease with yourself. You can practice and you can use the law of karma to create a happier, better future for yourself. But I think the law of karma goes further, it goes deeper than that. The motivation for karma and cooperating karma goes even further, even deeper than that. And so from a traditional Buddhist point of view, which believes in rebirth, the real aim, the kind of pure aim for a traditional Buddhist would be to be reborn in what's called a pure land. So what does that mean? A pure land would be a realm where you are never separated from the Dharma. It's a realm full of beauty, and everything you experience will communicate the Dharma to you. So the bird song will communicate the Dharma to you. The beauty of the landscape will communicate the Dharma to you. The fragrances will communicate the Dharma to you. So you're in this world full of beauty where you're never separated from the Dharma, and you're guaranteed to become enlightened if you're born into that kind of place. So a traditional Buddhist would be not only trying to be reborn into a happier, better life, but they'd be trying to be never separated from the Dharma in their future lifetime. So what does that mean to us? How could we translate that into kind of contemporary Buddhism, into our approach to Buddhism? What can that mean for us? How could we translate that? So I want to come back to this list of the 5 niyamas, this kind of list of different types of conditionality. And the 5th one I didn't go into earlier was the Dharma niyama. And it's hard to talk about, but you can experience it in a way, and you have experienced it. I mean, for me, when the path of vision starts with the Dharma niyama at play, there's an influence of the truth of the Dharma. And the Dharma is trying to communicate through in our experience to us. And whether you see that as a kind of wiser part of yourself or that knows the truth or something at play in the universe, the Dharma is there from the outset, but we're not really receptive to it. Our mind, to the extent that our mind is unethical, there's lots of noise going on, there's lots of inner conflict, and we can't really be receptive to the Dharma, to the truth, to wisdom. It's trying to kind of speak to us, but in a very kind of faint voice, and we don't really hear it. So the reason that I practice karma, that I try and become more ethical, is because I want to create the conditions for the Dharma to arise within me, for wisdom to arise within me. I want to try and create the conditions I purify my heart and my mind so it's more in line with reality, and reality, wisdom, insight can arise within my heart and mind. For me, that's why I practice karma and ethics. And there's a term in traditional Buddhism called becoming a stream entrant. It's kind of seen as an intermediate stage between where we are now and enlightenment. It's also poetically called entering the stream of the Dharma. I really like this image, this kind of description. It's like, to begin with, the Dharma is just like a little spring or trickle within our being. It's just very, very weak, very, very faint. But through our aligning ourselves with the Dharma, practicing ethics, purifying our heart and our mind, it starts to flow more strongly. It becomes a bit like a stream within us. And then eventually a really powerful current within our being, within our consciousness, being expressed with altruistic action, expressing itself with altruistic action. It becomes a really powerful current within our being. And to the extent that we then become, it's like more of our consciousness is kind of is aligned with the Dharma than isn't. And then it said we've entered the stream of the Dharma. We're going to be carried by that momentum, by that current within us to enlightenment. It's guaranteed. We're not going to ever be separated from the Dharma, and we will be enlightened. So that is said to be a realistic aim for us as Buddhists. That's achievable. Well, enlightenment's achievable, but it might seem far off. And entering the stream of the Dharma in that way is definitely attainable. So this is one reason. We're going to hear, in a sense, next week from Dharma Maya an even purer motivation to practice the Dharma and Karma. But for me, this is one reason why I practice the Dharma, to purify my heart and mind, to become more aligned to, more receptive to the Dharma. And just to give an advert for next week, Dharma Maya is going to talk about the Bodhisattva ideal, which is a big part of my inspiration as well. Yeah, so I'm sure you remember from the introductory course, we talk about how we can use the law of karma to transform our personality. But then also our personality, when we transform our personality, we transform the world that we experience. It's as though we are living in a different world. The more and more we transform our inner world, the outer world seems different to us. And we've got this, the other part of this verse from the Dhammapada that I read out earlier. Experiences are preceded by mind, led by mind, and produced by mind. This is really significant, central part of the Dharma of Buddhist teaching. Mind is central in Buddhism. Mind comes first. So our state of mind produces our experience. It leads in our experience, and it produces our experience. And it's true to say we live more in our inner world than we do in kind of an outer reality. And try this out for yourself. I'm sure you know this to be true, but try it out for yourself. And my first taste of this, I've talked about this a few times before, but when I was 12, 13 at my Catholic school in Sheffield, my secondary school, the RE teacher taught us to meditate. I'd never meditated before. I don't know why he did it, but he led us. We went into the chapel and he led us through a kind of bit like a mindfulness exercise crossed with some kind of visualization. And I can remember it vividly, actually. I remember the carpet, I remember the room. And I remember some of my friends giggling and getting sent out. And I remember another lad get snoring and falling asleep. But because I was trying to be a good boy, as I did at school, I just did what the teacher said. And I just had beginner's mind, really. I just wholeheartedly did what I was told to do. And I remember coming out and just thinking, what has happened to the playground? Like, the playground just looks completely different. It's like the school had changed somehow. Like, I was just really confused by this. I remember asking my friends, like, has something happened to the playground? Does it seem different to you? And it didn't, but I knew from then there's something really important about meditation. What I didn't know then was it was the law of karma in a way. What I'd done was something really significant with my mind. I'd done taken part in a really skillful action, which had transformed my consciousness, and the world suddenly became more vivid and more alive. I was living in a very different realm, a different world. So really, you could see that every time we act, we are being reborn as a slightly different person. Every time we make a choice of volitional action, we end up being reborn. We change our inner world, and we are living in a different world, for better or for worse, depending on whether our actions are skillful or unskillful. So maybe this idea of being reborn into a pure land isn't so crazy as it might seem to our kind of Western contemporary worldview. You could see the path of transformation is we start off with a vision of how life could be, and then we're gradually transforming our inner world, our speech, and our action to be in line with that vision. But then you can see it working in quite a linear way, progressive way. But mysteriously, it also seems to work backwards. It seems to work reciprocally. Like the more you change your action and your speech, your inner world starts to become purified and changes. And then your vision becomes different. Your vision is kind of purified and changes. It's as though our mind is muddied and kind of, dirtied basically by our unskillful action. We can't see the world clearly. And then, as we purify our action, we purify our inner world. It's like we're kind of cleansing the lenses on the spectacles. And William Blake, there's a line from a William Blake poem, which is only gone out of my mind, if we cleanse the doors of perception, we'll see the world as it truly is, infinite. So, you could see that that's what we're doing with the law of karma. We're cleansing our minds and our hearts, and we're cleansing the doors of perception. So we see, our vision becomes clearer. We see things more as they are. And to the extent we do that, the Dharma will start to arise within us. Wisdom, our mind will be, wisdom will start to arise within us. And again, I'm not going to try and explain that, it's mysterious, but you create the conditions for the Dharma to enter your consciousness, to kind of flow within your consciousness. And you can align yourself more and more with that, and it will flow stronger and more powerfully. It become more part of who you are. The Dharma will become more part of who you are, really strong current within your being. But if you do that, and all the time you're going to be reborn and reborn in moment by moment as a new person, living in a different world. And to the extent you do that, if you keep doing that, eventually you're going to be born and living in a world that is full of beauty. And everything you see, you'll see through the eyes of the Dharma. Everything you see, what you'll see is impermanent, fleeting, insubstantial, and very, very beautiful. Because of that, you'll live in a world of beauty, but in a world where everything you see communicates the Dharma and is an expression of the Dharma. So in a way, it'll be like you've been reborn into a pure land full of beauty, where you are never separated from the Dharma, and you will certainly gain enlightenment.